Okay, here we go. We are back with another week of our YouTube series on spiritual disciplines. My name is Emily, and I'm so glad that you have tuned in to this video. If you've missed our last couple of classes, they're still on our YouTube page. You can go back and watch those. I would love it if you did that before watching this video. But like I said, we're talking about spiritual disciplines, and spiritual disciplines are basically just shortcuts to knowing God in a better way, in a new way, on a deeper level. They're things that can help us with our spiritual life and kind of train us spiritually like we might train ourselves in a sport. And what I really particularly like about these disciplines is that they're very focused. Like it helps you just focus on one thing at a time. And 2 weeks ago, we focused on the discipline of celebration. And we talked a little bit about how celebrating things can actually help us grow closer to God. Noticing the gifts that God has given us and praising Him for those things and doing something tangible to celebrate them is awesome. And then last week, we talked about the discipline of simplicity. And simplicity is basically just the idea of inwardly and outwardly making your life more simple. Inwardly, you're focusing more on things that matter instead of things that don't matter. So you're focusing on God as much as you can, focusing on the things in life that God has convicted you of, has blessed you with. And then outwardly, just simplifying your schedule, simplifying your possessions, maybe getting rid of some stuff. We talked about a lot of really practical ways that we can practice simplicity. And so personally, I cleaned a few things out this week. It felt amazing. Oh man, I was journaling about it last night, and it's so freeing to get rid of stuff and to just give it to someone who needs it more than I do. So, if those topics interest you, maybe you'll go back and watch those videos. But this week, we have our third discipline that we are talking about, and that is the spiritual discipline of prayer. Can't get more basic than prayer. So before we get started and dive into what we're talking about with prayer and different ways to pray, I want you to watch this video.
Bruce, you have the divine spark. You have the gift for bringing joy and laughter to the world. I know, I created you.
Quit bragging.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the spark.
What do you want me to do?
I want you to pray, son. Go ahead. Use them.
Lord, feed the hungry and bring peace to all of mankind. How's that?
Great. If you want to be Miss America. Now, come on. What do you really care about?
Grace.
Grace. You want it back?
No. I want her to be happy. No matter what that means. I want her to find someone who will treat her with all the love she deserved from me. I want her to meet someone who'll see her always as I do now. Through your eyes.
Now that's a prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
It's good.
So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Bruce Almighty, but that's what that clip was just from. It was a movie that came out in 2003, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys who might be watching this video were born after 2003, so I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't seen that movie. It is a comedy, it's a religious movie, kind of all tied together, and Morgan Freeman is God. And Jim Carrey is, you know, just hilarious in the movie as always. And he's trying to find his way. And in that clip, he's kind of finding his way with prayer. He's figuring out how to pray. And, if you're anything like me, you may have had times in your life where you feel like, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm praying. Like, am I doing this right? Is God hearing me? Is there a right way to pray even? And so hopefully some of the things I'm about to tell you will encourage you in your prayer life and give you some new tips and tools perhaps to use. So the first thing I want to do is just answer the question, what is prayer? Prayer is simple. Prayer is a way to talk to God, and it is a way to listen to God. But it's both of those. It's not just one or the other. It's talking to God and listening to God. I want to read you a few verses, just quick little verses about prayer. Romans 12:12 says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Colossians 4:2 says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful." In this video, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And when I ask you these questions, just think of your first reaction in your head. You don't have to say it out loud, but just ask, I want you to be honest with yourself, and in your head, just answer the question yes or no. The first question is, do you feel like you're good at praying? Do you think that prayer is something that you are good at? I want to encourage you by telling you the first thing that we're going to talk about this morning or today is that prayer is a learning process. It is totally a learning process. And when I heard this for the first time, it was so freeing to me because it kind of just tells you, you don't have to know it all. You don't have to know what you're doing. You don't have to feel like you know what you're doing. You're learning along the way. We can question, we can experiment, we can even fail because we're learning. We're figuring this out, and God's going to help us along the way as we do. We have so much to learn, you guys. Even when we're old, if we're still following God and if we are Christians, we're still going to be learning things, even when we're 80 years old, 90 years old, if we live that long. As long as we live, we are going to be learning things about prayer and about our walk with the Lord. So my second question for you, after we talked about the fact that prayer is a learning process, just know that. The second question I want to ask is, do you think that prayer works? Do you think prayer is something that is worth your time? Do you think it works? I heard an analogy one time that said, if we were to turn on our TV at home and it didn't turn on, it didn't work, would we automatically just say, well, TVs all over the whole world, TVs everywhere are not working anymore. TVs are gone. TVs aren't worth it. They're not working anymore. It's over. Or would we try to fix it? Would we try to figure it out? We can kind of view prayer the same way. Instead of just the first time prayer doesn't seem like it's working the way you thought, or maybe the way you think it should, the first time that happens, we don't necessarily have to say, prayer doesn't work. It doesn't. It's over. I'm not going to pray anymore. You can try to figure it out. You can go through a process and try to learn some steps and find a way for it to work again. I think that a lot of times we just give up. But I want to tell you that prayer is something that is worth sticking with. The third question that I want to ask, I told you I'd ask you 3. The third question that I want you to answer honestly is, have you seen prayer work in your life or in someone else's life? Ever. Have you ever seen prayer work? I'm a person who I love secrets. Like, I don't like keeping secrets from people, but if there's like an exciting news or something that's awesome that like I get to be in on the surprise, I love that. And there's a secret to a successful prayer life that I want to share with you. So you're like in on the secret. You're going to be in on the special info. And the secret that I want to share with you is that in order to have successful prayers, okay, the secret is you have to listen to God. Get tuned into God. Notice God. Listen to Him too. There's a quote that says, "A man prayed, and at first he thought prayer was talking, but he became more and more quiet until in the end he realized that prayer is listening." Prayer is like being in communion with God. It's not just a one-way thing. It's a conversation. And so we can't do all the talking. So, and you may have heard this before, but it's such a great reminder because like we have to listen when we're praying. When it comes time to pray, it's not just us sending up requests. It's also just a time to listen and be in communion with the Lord. Um, a great example of this from the Bible is from 1 Kings 19:11 through 13. It says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. Okay, listen to this. "It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire was the sound of a gentle whisper." When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance. So in this story, what Elijah's doing is he's searching for God. He's trying to see God. He's trying to find God. He's trying to hear God. And at first he looked for him in a windstorm, then a fire. And this is kind of a significant experience for Elijah because the way that God had appeared to people back then, God had appeared in a burning bush to Moses in Exodus 3. He had appeared in billows of smoke at Mount Sinai later in Exodus and winds that shook the ground. And so God had been appearing in big, like natural earth ways. But then when Elijah's looking for God, despite the patterns that he had seen before and where he was trying to look for God, he felt God's presence in a gentle whisper. So, I think that's cool because it just reminds us that like where we're looking for God and the ways that we're trying to find Him, it might not be what we're expecting, and your prayer life might not necessarily be exactly what you are expecting it to be. And if you listen to God, I think He might speak to you in some sort of whisper. Maybe he'll give you some sort of nudge or whatever. But sometimes when I pray to God, I don't see a change. And it's in those moments that I have to remind myself sometimes it's not going to be exactly the change in the way that I'm expecting. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Before we finish our time together and before I kind of give you a moment to reflect on some of the stuff we were talking about and just kind of think about prayer a little bit more, I want to give you 2 practical ways to pray this week. And they're very different, but maybe these are ways that you haven't prayed before or that's not in your natural routine or pattern of praying. Because, like the story with Elijah, sometimes we have to look or pray in different ways, look for God in different ways than what we always think, where we always think we're going to see Him or think we're going to find Him. So, okay, the first practical way that I want you to practice prayer this week is praying for others. Sometimes, like, I feel like I'm not like, I don't know, my prayer isn't powerful enough to pray for someone else or whatever, or maybe I don't have enough faith to intercede with the Lord and change the path of someone else. But I do think that it takes a lot of courage to pray for other people. It's a sign of awesome faith when we pray for others. And so Matthew 17:20 says, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." Um, so, I think the beginning point in learning to pray for others is just guidance and asking the Lord to guide you in praying for that person. But praying for others is a simple thing, but praying for your family, praying for your friends, praying for someone that you know is struggling, like praying for other people is a very, very valuable, cool part of faith and part of prayer. And a lot of times our natural instinct is to just pray for ourselves, pray for things that I need, pray for things that I want. And praying for others is a selfless act of humility that will bring us closer to the Lord. So, praying for others is the first way to pray this week. And the second way to pray is breath prayer. And breath prayer is something that's become a little more popular over the last few years, but it's a unique way to pray simply. So I want you to get a Post-it note or a pen if you have one, if you're able to grab something, and breath prayer is usually said silently. Some people sing it or chant it or whatever, but a lot of, like, we're going to use it silently. And you might want to use a timer if you're doing this on your own and say your breath prayer for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or something. But and we're going to form our breath prayer together right now, and then you're going to pray this breath prayer this week. So I want you to, wherever you are, take a minute. We're going to form a breath prayer. Close your eyes, and I want you to recall the line from the Bible, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still, be calm, be peaceful. And with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine that God is calling your name. Imagine that He's actually asking you, what, fill in the blank, whatever your name is, what do you want? So, like, God would be saying to me, Emily, what do you want? He's kind of kindly looking you in the eyes and asking you this question. What do you want from me? So I want you to give God a simple and direct answer that comes from your heart. And you can write it down. Write down your answer. What do you want right now? It can be simple. It can be one word. It can be 3 words. But what do you want? This is going to be the foundation of your breath prayer. And then I want you to select the name that you are most comfortable calling God. So maybe it's God, maybe it's Father, maybe it's Lord, maybe it's Helper. I want you to write down the name that you are most comfortable calling God and combine it with your word or phrase of what you want. So this is going to be your breath prayer. So one of the breath prayers that I came up with was, Jesus, let me feel your love. Or, oh Lord, show me your will. Or, holy God, heal me. So these are the kinds of things that breath prayers can be. It can be anything. There's no wrong breath prayer. But you kind of, when you're saying it, you kind of simply repeat it over and over again. It kind of brings your attention to God and brings your attention to this one thing that you keep praying. And so when you breathe in, you say the name of God that you feel comfortable with. And then when you breathe out, you say whatever you're asking or requesting. So, like, Dear Lord, give me peace. And this can be something that you repeat just as you're breathing. And like I said, you can set a timer. You can do this for 1 minute, or you can do this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long you want to. It can be quick, or you can spend more time with it. But I just wanted to give you that tool this week as you are thinking about prayer and realizing that prayer is a learning process. It's not something that you have to know every single thing about right now. You're going to be constantly learning and constantly growing in this practice. But if you feel led to pray this week, you can pray for others, and you can use your breath prayer that you wrote down as a way of praying to God. So I hope that something in this video has helped you with your prayer life. a lot of the things that we've talked about are simple but good reminders, and just the fact that praying is talking to God, and it's listening to God, and it's our avenue of communicating with Him. And so nothing's more important than that. I will be praying over you all this week, whoever you are on the other side of this screen that's watching this video. I'll be praying that you feel connected to God in a new way, in a special way this week as you enter into your prayers. So I love you all, and I will see you on here next week.